So for today's video, I thought we'd take a bit of a trip down memory lane, go all the way back to FIFA 10, look at every championship club and who was their highest rated player from that year's FIFA, and have a bit of a look into how good they actually were. So if you do go on to enjoy today's video and you do like these videos where we look back into the past of different championship clubs, then make sure to leave a like, it is always massively appreciated. And before we do hop into anything, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors over at One Football. As always, you can find their link in the top line of the description down below. Really handy app to have to keep up to date with everything going on in the footballing world at the moment. Obviously, it's an ever-changing picture as to when football is actually going to be returning, so if you do want to get all the latest updates on everything going on, then One Football is a really handy app to have for that. But without any further ado, let's hop into this one. Barnsley Ian Hume. Now, what a player this guy was back in the day in the Championship. The Canadian striker. After playing for Barnsley, he then went on to play for my club, Preston North End. To show you how much I love the guy from back in the day, I got his name on the back of my shirt from a few seasons ago, and obviously that's the height of loving a player when you're getting them on the back of your shirt. But his career at Barnsley was actually a bit of an odd one, really. He was left out of action for quite a while after fracturing his skull at the club against Sheffield United. I think it was an elbow from Chris Morgan, if you remember him from Sheffield United back in the day. That left Hume out for quite a while for Barnsley. During his 2 seasons there, he scored 9 goals for the club, but like I say, his career there was sort of cut short with that fractured skull. Birmingham's Seb Lawson. What a player this guy was back in the day. 80 rated on FIFA 10, Birmingham's highest rated player. This guy could just go banger after banger, and he had a catalogue of them while he was at Birmingham. I think the pick of them being that goal he scored away at Tottenham at Hartley, an absolute worldie. He could play on the left or the right, but you knew you were going to get a good delivery into the box when you had a prime Larson playing for you. Blackburn Rovers, Paul Robinson. This one really is a bit of a throwback, obviously. Spent 7 seasons at Blackburn and also accumulated 41 caps for England as well. To be fair to Blackburn, they had quite the team on FIFA 10 that year. Nottingham's Pedersen being another highlight. I mean, that left peg he had on him, oh my days, he came up with some iconic moments for Blackburn. Brentford, Lewis Price. If this doesn't show how far Brentford have come in the last few years, I don't know what will, really. Their highest rated player on FIFA 10 was a 64 rated loanee from Derby, Lewis Price. I mean, Brentford, more than other clubs in the last 10 years, really have come on leaps and bounds. Another player that they had that year was Wojciech Szczesny as well, on loan from Arsenal. At 19, he was a fairly unknown, but obviously we all know what he went on to become. Bristol City, Paul Hartley. This guy knew how to take a free kick back in there. He was 75 rated and the highest rated player on FIFA 10. I think they just signed him from Celtic. Only spent the 1 season there at Bristol City, but made quite the impact while he was there. He scored 5 goals from midfield that season for Bristol City. Another player who was playing alongside with in midfield was Lee Johnson, and now Bristol City manager, 69 rated on FIFA 10. Charlton, Jonjo Shelvey. I don't think that some people realise just how much the Charlton Academy has actually produced. They've produced some absolute gems over the years, and I think I'm going to do a bit of a video looking into that. But on FIFA 10, it was Jonjo Shelvey as a 74 rated central midfielder as their highest rated player. As a youngster, I think all Charlton fans knew the player that they actually had on their hands at the time. He made his debut for Charlton while just 16 years old. Then after 3 seasons at Charlton, he went on to make that move to Liverpool, and then the rest is history. But it all started out at Charlton as a 74 rated midfielder. Cardiff City, Ross McCormick. What a player Ross McCormick was back in the day. 74 rated on FIFA 10. I think the only player in Championship history to score over 20 goals with 3 different clubs. He scored over 20 for Cardiff, Leeds and Fulham. In his first season at Cardiff, he scored 23 goals in all competitions, and he was capable of so much, scoring a different variety of goals. The streets won't forget just how good Ross McCormick was back in the day. One of the highest scoring Championship players of all time. Derby County was Chris Cummins. If I remember correctly, bit of an off and on player, but when he was on it, could be absolutely fantastic. He made his move over to Derby from Nottingham Forest, so quite a controversial switch there. It was a mad game at the City Ground. Forest found themselves 2-0 up, and then Derby managed to get themselves back into the game, and who will go on to score the winner? Of course, it was Chris Cummins against his former club. He also scored a fantastic goal against Man United in the League Cup that year as well. When he was on it, fantastic, but I don't think that injuries helped him throughout his Derby career. With Fulham, we're going to Hangeland, and what a player he was back in the day. Made over 200 appearances for Fulham. Instant impact when he came into the squad. He was part of the iconic Fulham team, which made it all the way to the Europa League final. There was also that bizarre story revolving him with Felix McGrath, the then Fulham manager at the time. If you cast your mind back to 2014, I think Hangeland had a knee injury at the time, and Felix McGrath suggested that he puts a block of cheese in it overnight and that will heal it. That was a weird time in the Premier League. Huddersfield Town, we're going to Alec Smith. He's made over 270 appearances for the Terriers. We all know about Alec Smith. He's had a fantastic career in the Championship. He then went on to make his move to QPR, where he was excellent, and then made his move to Cardiff, where he still is today. But coming through the Huddersfield Town youth setup, he had some iconic moments for the club. Of course, thinking back to when Huddersfield were promoted up to the Championship in that playoff final in 2012 against Sheffield United. The game finished finished 0-0, it had to go to penalties. And in the end, it got all the way around to the goalkeepers having to take the penalty. So the 11th penalty taken. Alec Smith ended up scoring his for Huddersfield. And Steve Simonson blazed his over the bar, which saw Huddersfield being promoted. Hull City Giovanni, oh my god, this was the original baller from back in the day. Thinking back to like peak Premier League years when Giovanni was knocking it around for Hull. He came out with some outrageous moments for the Tigers back in the day. His first full season at Hull, I think, finished as their top scorer in the Premier League. Scored 8 goals that season, some of them being absolute belters. The one Arsenal away, the one at Spurs away. Hull fans will know which ones I'm talking about. This guy was capable of lighting things up when he wanted to. Absolutely terrific player. Leeds United, Jermaine Beckford. What a card this was back on FIFA 10. 89 pace, 82 shooting as a silver 74 rated. Jermaine Beckford back in the day was an unreal FIFA card. But talking about Beckford in real life, he had quite the career at Leeds, of course. Myself as a Preston fan, I've got a lot of fond memories of Jermaine Beckford after he scored a hat-trick for us in the playoff final against Swindon to get us promoted. But his goals were also integral to getting Leeds promoted and out of League One. For 2 consecutive seasons in League One, he scored over 30 goals in all competitions, scoring 34, then 31 the following year after. I mean, that team that Leeds got promoted with, it was under Simon Grayson. They had Becchio and Beckford up front. In midfield, the likes of Robert Snodgrass, Johnny House and Bradley Johnson. It was a fantastic team. But Jermaine Beckford going forward really tips it off, of course. That goal against Man United in the FA Cup. In 3 full seasons at Leeds in League One, he scored 85 goals in total, which is absolutely ridiculous. That ended him a move to the Premier League. He went to Everton, and then after that, of course, moved around a little bit. But what a player Leeds had, and what a strike force that was, Becchio and Beckford. Then we get to Luton. Now, Luton weren't actually on FIFA 10, and the earliest FIFA that Luton actually appear on is FIFA 15. As of course, before that, they were knocking around in non-league. So for Luton, we're going to have to bend the rules of the video a little bit and have to go to FIFA 15. So the highest rated player on the first edition of FIFA that they were in was Craig Smith. I remember quite a bit about him from back in the day. Was a really in-demand striker. Back in 2010 while he was at Peterborough, he then made that move over to Brighton, and eventually in 2015 found his way at Luton. Throughout his time at Luton, did struggle a little bit with injuries, just scoring the 5 goals in his 2 seasons there before he then went on to leave and head to Wickham after that. Middlesbrough's highest rated player on FIFA 10. I mean, this one's a bit awkward really, because I mean, it's Adam Johnson as an 84 rated player, which yeah. Swiftly moving on from that, you know what, for Middlesbrough, we'll talk about their second highest rated player, perhaps. So their second highest rated player on FIFA 10 was Brad Jones. Good old Brad Jones. He's had a bit of a weird career, really, Brad Jones. He's played a lot of it as sort of a backup goalkeeper, so considering that he's been playing football since the year 2000, he's not actually made that many appearances considering during his career. Obviously, spent a lot of his time at Borough as a backup to Mark Schwarzer. After Schwarzer then departed, he was briefly then number 1 for a short amount of time, although he then made his move shortly after to go to Liverpool, where he was then a backup goalkeeper again. With Millwall, we're looking at 68 rated Lewis Grabban. Now, Lewis Grabban, interestingly enough, is actually the 7th highest all-time top goal scorer in the Championship. For 8 different clubs, he scored 91 goals in the Championship. Obviously, he's doing the business this season for Nottingham Forest, but he did spend 4 seasons at Millwall. There were a couple of loan spells into Spurs within that spell, just scoring the 11 goals for Millwall before he eventually moved on to Rotherham. Another iconic Championship striker was Robert Earnshaw. He was Forest's highest rated player on FIFA 10, 72 rated. This guy was an absolute menace to Championship defences. With his low centre of gravity and the way he could get around the pitch, he was an absolute nightmare. He had a fantastic goal scoring record at Nottingham Forest, and there's also another player to have featured for both Derby and Forest during his career. The opposite to Chris Cummins, who we spoke about before, he made the move from Derby to Forest. In 111 appearances for Forest, he scored 43 goals, which is a terrific goal scoring record, and after his time at Forest was up, he then went on to re-sign for Cardiff, his former team. Preston North End Ross Wallace, hands down, back in the day, one of the best wings in the Championship. He was absolutely unbelievable. As a North End fan, probably my first heartbreak in football was when Ross Wallace left us to go to Burnley. I was absolutely destroyed by that, but what a player he was back in his North End days. In his first season at North End, he got 19 assists in the Championship, which is absolutely phenomenal. He scored 5 goals to go along with that as well. He scored some absolute crackers, was an absolute set-piece specialist, scored a worldie against Birmingham, which went on to get us into the playoffs. Sheffield Wednesday fans will of course know a lot about Ross Wallace from his time there at the club, but while he was at North End and he was a little bit younger, he really was something special that season. QPR's highest rated player this season, believe it or not, was Ben Watson, who's still doing the business in the Championship to this day, with Nottingham Forest being their captain. But with QPR, he was on loan there this season, on loan from Wigan. There's no doubt Ben Watson's gone on and had a fantastic career, but I was a little bit surprised to see he was QPR's highest rated player. I had a little bit of a deeper delve into QPR's squad from that year, and we found a 69 rated Adel Taarabt. What a player he would go on to become for QPR. Adam Federici was Reading's highest rated player, a brilliant servant to the club. 11 seasons at Reading, accumulating over 250 appearances. He was excellently consistent throughout his time there, and obviously after leaving sort of ended up being a backup keeper to a lot of Premier League clubs after that. But at his peak, he was absolutely superb. Like, he was on top of his game, and goalkeeper's always been a position where Reading have been quite strong in recent years. Obviously they had Federici, Ali Al-Habsi, and then recently of course they had Martinez last season, who was brilliant for them, and even Rafael this season's been a top goalkeeper. So yeah, that's a good position for Reading, it seems. For Sheffield Wednesday, we are going to another goalkeeper, that being Lee Grant, as a 75 rated. He spent 3 seasons at Sheffield Wednesday. Interestingly enough, it's Lee Camp who currently holds the record for the most Championship minutes played, but Lee Grant isn't all too far behind that. He's obviously spent a lot of his career in the Championship. He's currently playing for Man United, as I think they're number 3, but he had a good 3 seasons at Wednesday. In the end, that earned him a move to Burnley, where he won the Fans Player of the Year for a season he had there. After that, moved back to Derby, then to Stoke, and then to Man United, where he is now. So had quite the career, but was a top goalkeeper back in the day. For Swansea City, we're going to an absolute club legend in Angel Rangel, their highest rated player on FIFA 10, only 71 rated, but what a career this guy had at Swansea. Over 370 appearances for the club. He had 11 seasons there, went from League One all the way up to the Premier League with him. It was a fantastic journey. And in terms of club football and one player's devotion to a club, Angel Rangel's right up there for fullbacks for his time at Swansea. He departed a couple of years ago and is still playing football in the Championship to this day at the age of 36, still playing of course for QPR, but at his peak was a really solid Premier League player. With West Brom, we're going to Scott Carson, 76 rated, made over 100 appearances for the Baggies. But West Brom fans, I'd be interested to know what were your thoughts and memories on Scott Carson, because thinking back to it, I don't know if it's just me thinking back to it wrongly, but I remember him making quite a few howlers back in the day, if I remember correctly. Obviously, he made a handful of appearances for England, which were less than convincing. That game against Croatia, the less said about the better, really. I think when he made his return back to England, he came back as a better goalkeeper, but back in the day for West Brom, always seemed to be a little bit hit and miss for me. And then finishing it off with Wigan Athletic, their highest rated player on FIFA 10 was Chris Kirkland, 79 rated, another goalkeeper making it on to today's list, but a really consistent player from his time back at Wigan. They were the best years of his career, I think, spent at Wigan. Made over 100 appearances for them in the Premier League. Signed, of course, from Liverpool after his time at Wigan, then went on to sign for Sheffield Wednesday. We saw quite a bit of him in the Championship after that. I think that Wigan are another one of those clubs who have been quite blessed with decent goalkeepers over the years. But guys, there we have it. There was every Championship club and their highest rated player on FIFA 10. So if you went on to enjoy today's video, guys, make sure that you leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. If you have any other suggestions of videos where you'd like to see me looking back on certain things from Championship clubs, then get your suggestions in the comments down below. I always enjoy doing videos like this. But apart from that, will now wrap it up for today's video. So if you're going to enjoy it, make sure you leave a like. Make sure you also subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.